Hi, Minister. It's good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time.
Always a pleasure.
I wanted to start off on the counter-tariff package that you announced today and ask you if the government has specifically or explicitly committed to using the revenue from those counter-tariffs to help people affected by the tariffs from the U.S.
Question. That's what we've said. That's why we've said that we would use these revenues to help. I mean, we've already been looking at industry across the nation. I've been in, as you might imagine, I've been on the phone pretty much all day yesterday and today, trying to reassure the industry. Because you know what? One thing we cannot allow, uncertainty cannot become the new certainty in North America. That's going to be part of the message tomorrow to Secretary Lutnick. I've seen a quote in the U.S. paper that said it's the Far West on the factory floors now, because people who are buying, the steel or aluminum, with these variation in one day. Just think about yesterday, how much variation you had. They say we're not bidding anymore because we just don't even know. So this is really affecting U.S. consumers. It's affecting U.S. worker industry, and the markets have spoken. I don't know if you've looked, but I mean, Canadians would know that the stock market, I think they've lost like $4 trillion in values.
Yeah.
So don't take it from me. That's why I said to the Americans, just look at the stock market. Listen to Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford and CEO of Alcoa. Some of these folks saying, listen, we can't manage. There's like policy fatigue. I've heard that in Washington that say, we just can't manage an economy this way. So our mission will be, let's start to restore a sense of normalcy in that so that we can trade in a normal way.
And I want to ask about the possibility of that and the sort of the premise of the meeting as well in a moment. But just to be explicit, the revenue that you take in from any counter tariffs will not just go into a general revenue fund that could be used to pay for other programs. It will go to supports for workers?
Listen, we will help our workers and the industry. Like I said, that's the intention. Now you're talking about the mechanics, how...
But I'm not just talking about the mechanics.
No,
I'm asking
the intention
genuinely...
has been very clear. Genuinely, we said we're going to use that.
It's not a cash cow for the government, correct?
No, listen, we've been very clear also with Mark Carney how we're going to run the finance in this country. We're going to be fiscally responsible. We're going to make the investment needed to make our country more resilient. So I think this has been, from day one, we have been very clear how we're going to be using these funds to support the industry. We said, no sector and no region of the country should feel disproportionately affected by that. So that's why I just want to say in the mechanics, there's things that you need to see how we're going to achieve that goal that we've set. But clearly, this is about supporting our workers, our industries, and our communities.
That meeting tomorrow, there's been a bit of crosstalk at the provincial level versus the federal about the intent and the subject that will be discussed. Is it at all about advancing negotiations around USMCA, or is it about removing the tariffs that are in place and the threat of more?
So let me be clear. It's about removing the threat of tariffs and removing the tariffs that are in place. It's not about the USMCA. There's no renegotiation tomorrow about USMCA. That being said, we have always said to the White House that we as a country would be ready to sit down and review the USMCA. If that is to...
Have they asked you to?
At least I can say personally that if you asked that to me, but I would say what we have been saying, and we've been working with Premier Ford, Premier Legault, Premier B, the whole premiers in the country, is that what we want is to restore a sense of normalcy, in the sense that, can we agree on the rules of the game? Because when we know the rules, we win. We are competitive. And now what you're seeing is that there's these fluctuations that are coming from all sectors. They are really affecting the economic security and I would say the national security of the United States. I spoke to folks who said, Minister, if these tariffs continue, that's going to be affecting very, very soon a number of factories in the United States. I was just on the call with Wen. He said, we just can't manage this way. So my message would be certainly tomorrow to say, let's get back to some form of process, some form of discussion. We just can't go on like what we saw yesterday, where we have tariffs kind of all over the place. We need to understand what are the issues, how can we address them, de-escalate that, at the same time sending them a message. And I would just want to go back to Premier Ford. He's been very, very good in being firm and really pushing forward the Canadian agenda to the American people, because now we're doing more American TV than ever, because I think the American people now are waking up and say, what is going on now? Because now they start to understand that the tariff on Canada is really a tax on Americans.
But it's not just media that he's done, right? He did a very specific thing on Monday. He added an export tax to electricity. Is the federal government supportive of using that lever when he deems necessary, or will it pull that lever itself?
Well, listen, he's decided to put that, then he decided to
but it contributed to the whoa that you're referencing.
Yeah, but I mean, in a sense, what it created also, I said that to the Americans, we can be nice, we can be friendly, but we bite as well. You know, we're Canadian. We're not going to stand still. We're going to be there and defending. So in a sense, he's been really heard in the American public. I must say that the message is now being heard by the American people. That's what we want, because for a time, I think this was about Canada, whilst this is really about American consumers. And I think he's done a great job in that, and other premiers. So this is a whole of Canada. I would say from day one, if you look at negotiation 101, I would not take anything off the table. And then you adjust, as we've been doing, to make sure that we defend the Canadian interests.
I guess that's the incentive for me asking you, right, is because we have one premier deciding to put on an export tax in 48 hours, take it back. It's not clear what role the federal government intends to play in applying one itself. And the reason I'm asking, it's not electricity. Premier Ford's obviously on board with using that card should it be necessary. In Alberta and Saskatchewan, on potash, on oil and gas, the premiers of those provinces are not. Is the federal government willing to go forward without their consent on something like that?
Well, listen, there'll be, now we'll have a new prime minister within a matter of days. We'll have a chance to discuss with premiers to make sure that we align ourselves. I think,
but they're not aligned. To be fair, that's in plain sight right now.
Let's, you know,
but the meeting happened today. There was one today. They were not aligned.
No, I mean, but
not
about
the
new prime minister, you know, is going to come and be sworn in this week. There'll be a discussion with premiers across the nation. I think everyone understands that the strength is in unity. You know, when we have a collective message and we act, you know, in a fashion that serves Canadian interests at large. So I would say we're going to be talking with the premiers. I'm in touch with our premiers. Minister LeBlanc is in touch as well to make sure that we have a coordinated approach. But I would say that all of these actions that have been taken, either removing, for example, products from the LCBO of the shelves of American products, what Premier Ford did, what Premier Legault did, what Premier B said. I mean, collectively, our message is getting through the American people. In that sense, I just want to say I'm grateful that we are united in that and bringing, and also, you know, Premier Smith. So there's more in the background that you would suspect that we're talking to each other to make sure that this is a strong message from Canada. And I think, you know what, the White House, I would say, is very cognizant of what's going on. I mean, when you have like the Secretary of Commerce calling the Premier, it's just to say that the message has been going through the American people.
But he called him after the export tax was levied. Premier Ford played that card, and that is what prompted this meeting that's happening tomorrow, which is why, and I have great respect for the process unfolding and the unity that you describe. And I think that you're right, by and large, when it comes to taking things off the shelves and not buying at a provincial level from American suppliers. But there are divisions. In the meeting between premiers that took place today, I know I spoke to people who were there, and they said there are very distinct divisions. And that's why people will be looking to the federal government to see what line they pursue. Are you willing to go against what a premier wants? Basically, is I think bluntly the question.
Let me put it this way. In a matter of renegotiation and dealing with the Americans, obviously the federal government has to lead that discussion. That's why I said there'll be, with the new prime minister coming this week, there'll be a discussion with the premiers and establishing the good relationship we had so far and maintaining, you know, hearing people out, because you're right, there might be different views, but one thing that is clear to me when I speak to all of them, they understand that our strength is in unity, and the country is united behind us. So we're going to be strategic, we're going to be systematic, we're going to demand respect. I don't know if you heard the speech of Mark Carney when he was talking to the Liberal Convention, but also I think it was an address to the nation. Say we're going to deal with respect. I know that Mr. Carney has had the opportunity in the past to meet President Trump. I said even in Washington, the fact that that might be good for them to have a reset and how they engage with Canada. You know, we just we cannot go on like that. And now it's not just Canada. Now it's the world. You know, you may have seen these tariffs that we've seen on steel and aluminum. You see the European Union reacting, Australia, which is an ally as well, the UK. So the world is kind of saying, hold on for a minute. This is really hurting our competitiveness. And this is not just about money, it's about people. It's about communities, about families that are being hurt. So we need to stop that nonsense.
It's in that vein I want to ask finally about actually other tariffs that are being levied on Canadian agriculture products, in this cultural, pardon me, products. In this sense, over the weekend, China said that it would impose counter tariffs to the EV ones that we put on back in the summer. Is your government thinking about considering removing any tariffs on China? Any of those EV tariffs, for example?
We're not.
You will not.
We're not.
Even given the issues with the United States right now, there's no second guessing our posture towards trade with China at this moment?
Well, I would say not with respect to the tariffs that we put, because there was a good reasons. We would say we would never be a backdoor to cheap Chinese vehicles, which are overly subsidized and where they don't respect labor law and environmental laws. I mean, there's a reasons why they're dumping you know, steel in North America, and you see these cheap vehicles coming here. We want to protect our industry. We want to protect our workers. We want to protect our communities. And the reasons why we imposed the tariff in the first place still remain very valid today, because we want to protect our industry. And you know, the problem.
So no big opening to China at this moment, like you know, one premier has essentially called for a rethink of that.
I would say with respect to the tariffs we put, there was a very specific reason. And I think people understood that well. And the last thing you would want is you know, my point is, it's a bigger thing. If you look at the force as opposed to three, you said, let's establish rules. If everyone respects the rules, I know we win. The problem now is that on this case, you have China who does not respect the rules, and therefore they're dumping products here and cheap products, and therefore that would be hurting our Canadian economy and industry. So we're going to stand strong, we're going to stand firm, we're going to fight for Canadian interests, and honestly our mission is to, like I said, we cannot allow uncertainty to become the new certainty in North America, because it goes to undermine our competitiveness in North America, and that's going to affect our national security over the long term, and I think that message is now resonating in Washington.
Minister, I'll leave it on that note. Thank you very much.
Safe
travels.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.